In August 1828, Madagascar witnessed a dramatic and bloody turning point when Ranavalona I, formerly known as Ramavo, ascended the throne as queen. Her rise to power followed the sudden death of her husband, King Radama I, who had modernized Madagascar and established strong ties with Britain. His death left no direct heir, and by royal custom, his designated successor was his nephew, Prince Rakotobe. However, Ramavo, King Radama's widow, had no intention of stepping aside. She had long remembered a prophecy from the late king and father-in-law, who had once told her she would rule the land one day if she remained patient. When Radama died, she acted swiftly and ruthlessly to make that prophecy come true. Before the king's death was officially announced, Ramavo secretly allied with influential officers of the royal army, especially the commander Andrea Mamba. Together, they seized control of the royal palace in Antananarivo, cut off communications, and executed Radama's loyalists. Prince Rakotobe and his family were murdered, along with other nobles who might challenge her claim. By the time the public learned of Radama's death, Ramavo had already consolidated her hold on power. In August 1828, she declared herself Queen Ranavalona I, ruler of the Kingdom of Madagascar. Her coronation was performed with traditional royal rituals, invoking the blessings of the ancestors. Drums thundered through the capital as cannons fired in celebration, but behind the ceremony lay fear and bloodshed. Many knew the price of her crown had been treachery and death. That day marked the beginning of a new era, one of absolute rule, isolation, and terror. Mass executions, imprisonment, and strange ways to prove innocence. Ranavalona's ascent not only changed the leadership of Madagascar, but also reshaped its destiny, as she would go on to rule for more than 3 decades, fiercely defending her throne and rejecting all foreign influence. This is the story of the most cruel and ruthless female dictator in African history. This is the story of Queen Ranavalona I, the woman who ruled Madagascar with an iron fist for over 3 decades. Ranavalona I, born Ramavo, around 1778 in the central highlands of Madagascar, began her life in a world of political turmoil, royal ambition, and rigid social order. She was born into the Merina ethnic group, the dominant people of the island's interior. Her father was a lesser noble of the Andriana class, while her mother came from a family of respectable lineage but without great power or wealth. At that time, the island was not a unified nation, but a patchwork of kingdoms, each ruled by its own local chief or monarch. Among these, the Merina kingdom stood out as the most ambitious, ruled by a formidable man named Andrianampoini Merina, who was determined to unite the highlands and eventually the whole island under one crown. Ramavo grew up in a traditional Merina society, deeply guided by ancestral beliefs, rituals, and a strict caste system that separated nobles, commoners, and slaves. From childhood, she was taught the values of loyalty, respect for the ancestors, and obedience to authority. Her early life was modest by royal standards, but she displayed sharp intelligence, strong will, and composure from an early age. She learned the customs and ceremonies of her people, the responsibilities of a noblewoman, and the art of restraint, which would later define her demeanor at court. Her destiny took a remarkable turn because of her father's extraordinary act of loyalty to the Merina king. During the reign of King Andrianampoini Merina, there was a conspiracy among certain nobles to assassinate the monarch and seize the throne. Ramavo's father discovered the plot and risked his life by revealing it to the king before it could be executed. His courage and loyalty saved the ruler's life. In gratitude, the king rewarded him with honors and declared a prophecy that would forever alter the course of Ramavo's life. The king proclaimed, "Because your father has preserved my life, I promise that your daughter will one day sit upon this throne." Those words became a sacred promise and a powerful prophecy that elevated Ramavo from the daughter of a minor noble to a figure marked by destiny. After her father's heroic act, Ramavo and her family were brought to live at the royal court in Antananarivo, the capital of the Merina Kingdom. There, she was exposed to the customs of the royal household, the complexities of politics, and the constant tension between loyalty and ambition. The court was both dazzling and dangerous, a place where alliances shifted quickly and where a single misstep could lead to exile or execution. In this environment, Ramavo learned to be cautious, observant, and diplomatic. She was known to possess calm intelligence, a sharp memory, and an ability to read people's intentions, qualities that would later make her a formidable political figure. During her youth in the palace, Ramavo's beauty and grace caught the attention of many. She was admired for her dignified bearing, soft-spoken nature, and the sense of mystery surrounding her. By this time, the king was advancing in age and focused on securing the succession of his son, Prince Radama. The young Radama was intelligent, ambitious, and fascinated by the outside world. He admired European advancements in education, technology, and warfare. He believed that by engaging with foreign powers, Madagascar could modernize and become a strong, respected nation. When Radama ascended the throne after his father's death around 1810, he sought to solidify his authority through strategic marriages. In Merina tradition, royal marriages were tools of diplomacy. They were not simply romantic unions, but political alliances that strengthened loyalty among noble families and helped stabilize the throne. Ramavo, with her noble bloodline and the prophecy of the former king, was an ideal candidate. Marrying her would honor the king's promise and secure the continued loyalty of her family. Radama's marriage to Ramavo was arranged with careful ceremony. The wedding took place within the sacred compound of the royal palace in Antananarivo, following elaborate rituals meant to invoke the blessing of the ancestors. Offerings were made, sacred chants were recited, and the royal priests, or mpanandro, chose an auspicious day for the union. Ramavo was adorned in fine silk and gold ornaments, and the air was filled with the sound of drums and traditional horns. Though not his only wife, she was among his principal consorts and one of the most respected women in the royal household. Life as one of King Radama I's wives was both a privilege and a test. The young king was determined to modernize Madagascar and sought strong ties with the British. He invited Christian missionaries, allowed the translation of the Bible into Malagasy, and sent envoys abroad to establish diplomatic relations. He also adopted European military organization and introduced new schools to educate the elite. These sweeping reforms were revolutionary, but they also caused unease among traditionalists who saw them as a threat to Malagasy culture and spirituality. Ramavo, unlike her husband, was deeply conservative. She believed in the authority of ancestral spirits, traditional rituals, and the customs that defined the Merina way of life. She viewed the growing European presence with suspicion and feared that foreign religions and ideas would undermine Malagasy sovereignty. Within the palace, she often kept to herself, but she quietly voiced her disapproval of the missionaries and their influence over her husband. Despite the political nature of their marriage, Ramavo's position in the palace remained influential. As one of the senior wives, she managed her own household, servants, and estates. She also served as an intermediary between the king and certain noble factions, using her tact and composure to maintain peace among rival families. Her intelligence earned her respect, even among those who did not share her views. The relationship between Ramavo and Radama was complex. He was a progressive ruler who spent much of his time focused on his army and foreign relations, while she embodied the conservative traditions of their ancestors. Some reports suggest that Radama, frustrated by her opposition to his reforms, began to distance himself from her. Other accounts claim that he still respected her for her dignity and wisdom, even if he preferred the company of his other wives. Whatever their emotional dynamic, Ramavo remained loyal to the royal household and maintained a powerful presence at court. As the years passed, Ramavo became more politically aware. She observed the tensions growing between the modernizers who supported Radama's reforms and the traditionalists who resented the influence of Europeans. She also saw how fragile the throne could be, how easily alliances could break, and how quickly power could shift. These lessons would stay with her for life. She learned that in the world of monarchy, survival depended not only on loyalty, but on cunning and timing. Ramavo's experience in the royal court was her greatest education. She learned how decisions were made, how the nobles maneuvered for influence, and how the army played a key role in maintaining power. She watched how foreign envoys negotiated with her husband, and how their promises of friendship came with hidden ambitions. This insight would later define her own reign, though she did not yet know it. By the time Radama's health began to decline in the late 1820s, Ramavo had grown into a mature woman, intelligent, patient, and fully aware of the kingdom's political landscape. Though she lived in the shadow of her husband's grand reforms, she had quietly built a network of allies among the conservative nobles and the military. She had no children with Radama, but her influence and strategic mind made her one of the most respected women in the palace. Her early life and marriage were marked by destiny and discipline rather than romance and comfort. She entered the royal household through prophecy and loyalty, endured the challenges of being married to a reformist king, and emerged as a woman shaped by both tradition and survival. These experiences, her upbringing in a noble family, her father's heroism, her education at court, and her life beside a modernizing monarch, laid the foundation for the powerful queen she would later become. Queen Ranavalona's rule over Madagascar from 1828 to 1861 stands as one of the most brutal, controversial, and paradoxical reigns in African history. After seizing the throne in August 1828 through a bloody palace coup, she established herself as a monarch, both feared and revered, a woman who ruled through fear, suspicion, and ruthless discipline. Her goal was clear: to preserve the independence, culture, and sovereignty of Madagascar at any cost. But the methods she used to achieve that goal plunged the kingdom into decades of terror, isolation, and unimaginable suffering. From the very start of her reign, Ranavalona faced opposition. Many nobles had supported the late King Radama, the first's pro-European policies, which introduced modernization, Christianity, and foreign trade. Ranavalona viewed these influences as a dangerous threat to Malagasy traditions and authority. She believed the missionaries and European advisors were undermining her rule and turning her people away from their ancestral gods. Determined to root out this foreign infection, she declared a campaign of cultural and political purification that would soon evolve into one of the harshest autocratic regimes in the 19th century. Her rule was characterized by absolute control. She revived and expanded the ancient Fanampoana system, a form of forced labor that required citizens to work without pay for the monarchy. Men, women, and even children were forced to build roads, palaces, and fortresses, or to serve in the army. These laborers endured brutal conditions with little food or rest. Thousands perished from exhaustion, starvation, and disease while constructing monumental works meant to glorify the queen's power. The most infamous of these was the Manjakamiadana Palace in Antananarivo, which became a symbol of her authority, but also a reminder of the human suffering that built it. Ranavalona's harshest laws targeted those she believed to be disloyal or influenced by foreigners. especially Christians. She banned Christianity outright, viewing it as a betrayal of traditional Malagasy beliefs and a form of European intrusion. Converts who refused to renounce their new faith were hunted down, imprisoned, tortured, or killed. Churches were destroyed, Bibles were burned, and foreign missionaries were expelled. The persecution reached its height in the 1830s and 1840s, when hundreds of Malagasy Christians were executed publicly as a warning to others. Some were speared, others thrown from cliffs, and many forced to endure the dreaded Tangina ordeal, a traditional trial by poison that became one of the darkest symbols of her reign. The Tangina ordeal was used to determine guilt or innocence in criminal and political cases. The accused were forced to swallow a potion made from the toxic nuts of the Tangina tree, along with 3 small pieces of chicken skin. If the accused vomited up all 3 pieces, they were declared innocent. If they failed or died, as most did, they were considered guilty. Under Ranavalona's rule, this deadly ritual became a widespread instrument of fear and control. Historical records estimate that tens of thousands, possibly over 100,000 people, perished through the Tangina ordeal during her reign. Families could be destroyed over rumors or accusations, and entire villages were sometimes subjected to the ritual to test their loyalty to the crown. Her cruelty was not limited to religious persecution. Ranavalona ruled through an elaborate system of spies known as Mpitahiri Nitsiambaratelo, or Keepers of Secrets. These agents infiltrated every level of society, reporting whispers of discontent, gossip, or foreign sympathy. Anyone suspected of criticizing the queen or questioning her authority was swiftly arrested and often executed. Public executions were frequent and deliberately brutal, meant to instill terror and obedience. Rebels, traitors, or accused conspirators were beheaded, burned alive, or impaled on stakes in front of large crowds. Fear became the glue that held her kingdom together. Despite the bloodshed, Ranavalona maintained her grip on power through cunning and strategic manipulation. She played rival noble families against one another, rewarding loyalty with wealth and punishing dissent with death. Even her closest advisors lived in constant fear. The queen's personal temperament was unpredictable. At times, she could be charming and generous. At others, merciless and vengeful. Her court became a place of tension, where smiles masked fear and loyalty was a matter of survival. Economically, her policies devastated Madagascar. By cutting off most foreign relations, she halted trade that had flourished under her late husband. Only a few European traders were allowed to remain under strict control. The island became isolated from global commerce and technology, relying instead on forced labor and internal production. Meanwhile, her wars to expand and defend the kingdom were catastrophic. One of the most disastrous campaigns was the invasion of the eastern coast in 1835 to 1836, where her army, unprepared for tropical diseases and harsh conditions, lost between 50,000 and 100,000 men. Yet even after such failures, no one dared question her leadership. Ranavalona's brutality extended to her personal life. She distrusted nearly everyone, including her own son and heir, Prince Rakoto. Although the prince secretly favored modernization and had close ties to foreign diplomats, he was forced to conceal his ideas for fear of execution. Her paranoia deepened as she aged, and executions of suspected traitors became even more frequent. Those closest to her often lived in silent terror, knowing that a single accusation could lead to death without trial. While kingdoms around her fell to British, French, and Portuguese control, Ranavalona's Madagascar remained fiercely independent. She maintained a functioning army, an organized bureaucracy, and a centralized monarchy that resisted colonization for decades. Her methods were brutal, but they succeeded in keeping foreign powers at bay, at least during her lifetime. By the time of her death in 1861, Ranavalona had ruled for 33 years, longer than any monarch in Madagascar's history. Yet her legacy was soaked in blood. It is estimated that between 200,000 and 250,000 people died from executions, forced labor, and starvation during her reign. Her people both feared and admired her, feared her cruelty, yet respected her unyielding defense of Malagasy sovereignty and culture. Ranavalona I remains one of history's most complex figures, a ruler who combined patriotism with tyranny, faith with fear, and strength with savagery. To her supporters, she was a guardian of tradition who saved Madagascar from foreign domination. To her critics, she was the Mad Queen of Madagascar, whose reign of terror left deep scars on her nation's history.